Alright, welcome to my top 5 most common kayaking mistakes and how to fix them. Recently I was down at the Nottingham Whitewater Park and there was a dude in a beautiful blue carbon jet that just exemplified some of the most common mistakes in kayaking, and he provided a great subject matter to film and get all these shots on camera, so thank you, the beater in the blue carbon jet, for being such a great example of all these mistakes. I have no idea who he is. Mistake number 1, I call this the wobbles. So this is when a kayaker can't hold their kayak flat or on one continuous edge and they're just rocking from side to side. And the biggest problem with this is it just looks plain uncool. The next biggest problem is that on whitewater you're going to constantly be dropping the right and the wrong edge. So you've dropped your right edge, the water's flowing underneath your kayak, no issue, but then you wobble and you drop your left edge and the water piles up on top of your kayak, and we all know what happens next. You power flip and hopefully you can roll, but who knows? Which is not something we want. So we want to practice to either holding the kayak flat or holding it continuously on one edge, but definitely not rocking backwards and forwards between each edge. Also, if you're into racing, anytime the kayak is rocking edge to edge, you're losing energy and you're losing speed, so you really want to keep that kayak as flat as possible. If you watch some of the top slalom racers, it is insane how flat they can keep the kayak and how long they can hold it on edge while still putting the power down. It is really impressive. Mistake number 2, paddle angle. So a good kayaker can use a single stroke to do a multitude of things, but primarily the paddle works in 2 ways: steering and powering the kayak. When the paddle is horizontal, like this, it's more of a steering stroke. When the paddle is vertical like this, it's more of a powering stroke. Most beginners you see will have the paddle really low, right? And so they'll be trying to paddle forwards, but they'll be using their paddle in a way where it's more of a directional stroke than a powering stroke, right? And so that's where you'll see people swinging the nose of the kayak from side to side as they're trying to kayak in a straight line, and they're having all sorts of difficulties just keeping the kayak straight, let alone traveling efficiently and quickly across the water. And so that's mistake number 2, not using the paddle right. If you're trying to turn the kayak, it's fine to have that paddle low and to use a sweep stroke, but if you're trying to power the kayak or generally do anything sick in a kayak, you're going to want to have your paddle vertical. 1, it looks way cooler, and 2, most of the sick advanced strokes involve the paddle being vertical, whether that's for a booth or a bow rudder or all sorts of things. The paddle is generally vertical for the more advanced skills in kayaking. So even if you can't do them, just get that paddle vertical and just pretend like you can. Hashtag fake it till you make it. Mistake number 3, stroke length. So generally speaking, the best kayaker on the water will take the fewest strokes. Taking less strokes means that you conserve energy, you're more efficient, and you have your blade engaged in the water for longer. The reason why having your paddle engaged in the water for longer is better is because the paddle is basically the steering wheel of the car. And so anytime you don't have your blade engaged in the water, that's like having your hands off the steering wheel. Although there's times where you're not going to have to steer all the time and you can just chill, you're going to want to be ready to react to whatever is coming. And if you don't have your paddle in the water, you're not ready to react. You first got to place a paddle in the water, then react. Same for if you're driving a car, you got to grab the steering wheel, then turn. And we want to avoid that. We want to cut down on the reaction time needed. And so the way that we do that is by having our hands on the steering wheel ready to go. And the same as if you're on whitewater, the paddle is either in the water or it's positioned ready to take a stroke, ready to react. Mistake number 4, rushing. The thing that all top athletes have in common is that when they do something, they look like they have all the time in the world while they're doing it, and they make it look really easy. The thing that all beginners have in common is that it always looks a little bit frantic when they're trying to do something, and you see this especially in whitewater kayaking. You know, the beginner kayaker is in the eddy, they're coming up to the eddy line about to peel out and ferry into the main flow, and they're scared and things get all frantic and they do all the things that we just talked about. You know, their stroke length is really short, they're wobbling their edges, they're doing all sorts of things, they're not really looking where they're trying to go, they're looking at the scary thing in front of them, whole host of mistakes. So we don't want to rush anything, especially out on the river. There's no time constraints. Take all the time in the world that you need to get a move done. Mistake number 5, not using river features. I like to imagine the river as a Mario Kart setup, right? You ever play that game? So there's spots that are going to give you a speed boost, and there's spots that are going to slow you down, spin you out, and cause you to lose the race to Donkey Kong, which sucks. So we constantly want to be looking for what river feature is going to enable us to get to where we're going as easily as possible, and we want to be looking for what river features are going to hinder our attempts to get where we want to go. And it's one thing to be using these river features to turn, power your kayak, allow you to hit your line, and a whole host of things. Those are really advanced skills, but what you can start doing from the beginning is spotting these river features and just imagining how you would use them, you know, like cushion waves. You can lean into them and hold a stroke and they'll push you to where you want to go in the river. You can use waves to help you scout a rapid, so when you get to the top of the wave you'll be like meerkatting and you'll get a bit of a better view of what's coming down. You can use holes to slow you down, you can use micro eddies to stop. You can do a whole host of things with river features that you couldn't do if you were to not use them. So that's a really advanced skill, and it takes a lot of time and experience to be able to implement it into your kayaking, but we can start off just by spotting these river features and trying to understand how we could use them to have a sicker, easier line down the rapid. Alright, that is it. That's my top 5 kayaking mistakes and how to fix them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you have a sick spring and summer on the water, and hopefully I'll catch you guys either in Canada, England, or Norway. Peace out. Damn it, I was so close to keeping this video under 5 minutes. Can you imagine how good it would have sounded to click on a video that says 5 common mistakes in kayaking in under 5 minutes. We didn't quite make it. I think we're at like 6:08 right now. But I just wanted to touch on a few things before I go. Number one, I know that I didn't talk about keeping your head down while rolling. That's a big one, but because that's a specific error involved with a specific skill, I didn't want to put it in because I wanted to cover like a bit more of like a general base for this video of kayaking errors and mistakes and all of that stuff. I also didn't really touch on looking where you want to go because I felt like I sort of touched on that a little bit in the looking for river features and how you can use them part of the video, but that's a big one as well. Looking where you want to go, not looking at the scary thing in front of you, to your left or to your right. And I think that's about everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you out on the water.